Hello there, welcome to the Saroy channel. Wherever you are in the world, and so much love to each and every one of you. Isn't it wonderful you joining me again on this fabulous evening when there is more to be learnt in this fabulous story, and it's an exciting story at that, and I'm really enjoying it, and I hope you are too. So here we are on part 3 of our story tonight. If you haven't heard part 1 or part 2 of the story, don't forget to click on the description. And let's continue with part 3 of our story tonight.
I'm not imagining this,
I told him emphatically.
Something is watching us. It's giving me the heebie-jeebies. I don't get nervous easily, Dusty. But something's not right. I can feel it in my bones.
I showed him the hairs on the back of my arms that were standing on end. That did very little to impress Dusty Cladessa.
There, I said, pointing to the tree suddenly. I've seen it again, over there. Can you not see it? I know something's there.
And sure enough, there was a dark shadow, loitering behind the trees rather ambiguously, and it was clandestinely watching us, and I knew it was.
I saw a flash of yellow eyes shine at us at about 8 feet off the ground. What do you think it was, Dusty? I asked him. Let's go and have a look then, shall we? Said Dusty, slurring his words. No harm in checking it out, is there? If there is a mystery that needs solving, Dusty Cladessa will get to the bottom of it. You mark my words.
I wasn't sure that Dusty was going to get very far in his inebriated state, but I followed him soberly across the beach, as he wobbled precariously on his legs like a rocking chair, as we ambled towards the grove of trees. I don't mind admitting I did not particularly like the thought of confronting the danger lurking in those trees that were clustered so tightly together in congenial groups, like a large body of people at a football stadium, only the woodgrove did not possess that animated, pleasing ambience. Instead, it felt airily inauspicious and as unwelcoming as a dental surgery on a day when you are having all your teeth extracted. I remember entering those woods, overcome with a dreadful sense of foreboding that I could not shake off, and a doomful feeling of impending dread, and like a snake detecting its prey, I could feel and sense danger in our midst. The ominous, mischievous shadows toyed with us teasingly, and drained the grove of any prisms of light, so that everything was clouded in obscurity, and forms as innocent as they may have been, in the dense, menacious, hostile darkness, looked hideously distorted and crooked, like something out of a funhouse mirror. I was more inclined to run away from the woodgrove like a frightened little rabbit, but Dusty Cladessa had other ideas for us. He was a confrontational type of person, not easily spooked by very much, who did not run away from challenges, but embraced them head-on, like a cantankerous bull, charging towards a matador's red flag, giving no heed, not even a fleeting thought, for the danger he might be in, and viewing our walk through the woods as more like a delightful game. How I wished I had not shared with him my gut feeling of our being watched, as being here in the woods made my heart hammer like a woodpecker's beak. I knew unequivocally that Dusty was the kind of man that could potentially have been the big bully at school that everybody was terrified of. So I realized if I challenged our friendship, he'd spit me out with contempt and ridicule me for being such a flake. At this stage of the game, my heart was doing flip-flops, and my mind was a gymnasium of thoughts I did not want to entertain. I knew that whatever had been scrutinizing us on the beach had artfully wrapped itself in the tenebrific dark shadows, watching us cunningly, and whatever it was, it felt predatory, it felt dangerous. I could feel eyes burning into the back of my skull, and a sizable, formidable presence. The only way I can describe it to you is entering an enclosure with a dangerous animal at the zoo that has the potential to tear you apart, limb from limb, and kill you. You are going to proceed with caution as you enter that cage, are you not? As every warning instinct in your body enlightens you to be vigilant and on your guard, because you can smell and taste that danger, even if you don't see it at once. You know, one wrong move, and you could end up as a steak dinner for that predator. I hasten to say every step I took cautiously into the grove was tentative, but I knew persuading Dusty that this was not a good idea would not be wise on my part, for this man was resolutely determined to find out what I had seen. In truth, I would rather have remained blissfully ignorant. Maybe he did believe I had seen something, for he became fixated as he scanned the trees, using the bright light of his torch to penetrate the footpath, and I could swear he became excited.
"There is something here," he agreed with me, "and we're going to find it. And I think I know what you saw."
All of a sudden, Dusty Cladessa picked up a piece of timber and began knocking one of the trees. He knocked the tree limb 5 times, and then, sure enough, a moment later we heard 5 responding wood knocks.
"What the hell?" I said. "There is something there. Whoever or whatever they are, they copied your wood knocks. This is not good."
Dusty looked reasonably satisfied and knocked on the tree again. 5 more knocks, and once again we heard 5 knocks returning to us, followed by a loud, very scary howling sound, or a scream of some kind that sent chills spasming through my body like crackling fireworks.
"We've got to get out of here," I told Dusty. "We need to leave the wood grove now. There's something in the woods. It doesn't want us here. And whatever it is, it's big. I can feel it." "Don't be such a wuss,"
said Dusty, looking at me in disgust, as if he thought I was behaving like a terrified toddler that had stood on a snail and was making a big deal over it. I suddenly felt very foolish. The last thing I wanted was my new friend to think that I lacked guts. So we continued walking through the trees, and Dusty was wearing a gormless grin on his face, like one of those menacious caricature clowns you see in the horror movies, and the maniacal contorted look he gave me creeped me the hell out. In that moment I think I was more afraid of Dusty Cladessa than the strange screams we had heard in the woods, and that was when we saw it, blocking our path. It stood there with tree-trunk-sized legs stretched out before us like the Berlin Wall, as if barricading our path so that we couldn't go any further, even if we wanted to. The creature's thick hands were holding the branches of a tree. It towered above us at about 9 foot tall, with powerful overlong arms and a robust, indestructible body covered with long, flowing dark hair. I realized in a heartbeat that we were staring at a sizable Bigfoot, and there are no words to describe to you what it is like to come face to face with something you never believed existed in your reality, but in the script of children's novels. Something that has the power to literally snap you in half like a pretzel without even blinking an eyelash. I have never in my life felt such foreboding fear, and a warm trail of urine spilled down my legs. I wet myself, for I was so crippled with terror that my bladder just opened like the floodgates of a large river. I stood there in horror, unable to believe what I was seeing, feeling now certain I had drunk too much, because this just could not be happening. This could not be real. I must be so drunk that I was seeing things that weren't there. But I realized that my wishful, far-fetched thinking was being brutally severed by the truth. This all-male Bigfoot was real. I was certain he was going to kill us, as he seemed so angry, and his furious eyes burned with indignation, but they ignored me and were focused intently on Dusty Cladessa. The Bigfoot's face was so remarkably human, it took me aback. He had grey, leathery skin, dark, hooded eyes, a protruding, heavily wrinkled forehead, high cheekbones, and rather a squat, flat nose. I was able to see him clearly in the light of Dusty's torch, and the generous moonlight that spilled through an open area in the forest canopy. I remember turning to look at Dusty as the creature's furious, challenging gaze continued to look directly at him. I was crumbling at the knees with trepidation, my legs feeling like large concrete blocks that were cracking beneath me. But Dusty was heedlessly aggressive and impetuously challenging towards this male Bigfoot, like a small, rather irritating toy poodle at the doggy park, engaged in a standoff with a bull mastiff. I couldn't believe Dusty was being so cockily arrogant, so carelessly irresponsible like this, provoking this Bigfoot to even more anger and exposing us to grave danger. You didn't challenge a dauntingly powerful creature like this that could so easily snap off your head in a second. But Dusty was flippantly staring at him straight in the eyes, as if not remotely intimidated, and that was when I realized that Dusty Cladessa was not completely normal. Surely even his alcoholic intoxication would not soften the blows of the Bigfoot we were staring at us, who was so terrifyingly intimidating. I was literally gasping in terror. I mean, I know of no other man that could behave this recklessly and be so mindlessly incautious. The Bigfoot stood there like a statuesque, tall, lofty tree, and there was madness in his dark eyes. He pulled back his lips to expose his large human teeth and growled directly at Dusty. And what Dusty did next was infuriating. He picked up a stone and threw it at the Bigfoot, as if to make a statement. "No, I'm not afraid of you." What was wrong with the man? Did he have a death wish or something? Did he want our bodies to be ripped apart, hanging over the trees and strips of meat for the coyotes to enjoy? Because he was certainly going the right way about it. The stone did not do any damage to the Bigfoot, but it provoked him to an insatiable rage, and he let out a furious roar. And in that moment, my life flashed before me. Then I saw Dusty becoming fearful, as if suddenly his overly confident arrogance had been beaten to a pulp, and he had suddenly become conspicuously aware that this time he'd gone too far and had bitten off more than he could chew. Dusty screamed at me, "Run! He's going to kill us!" And I jerked into some kind of slow reaction, like an old battered toy, sputtering back to life. My legs were just so heavy beneath me. I tried so hard to run through the trees, my breath fast and furious, my body heaving and groaning as if it weighed 1/2 ton. I felt the Bigfoot brush past me, pushing me gently to one side out of his way, as he charged after my friend. And I was certain that Dusty Cladessa was dead. But I found him on the beach, after I made my way through the woods, cursing under his breath. Thankfully, the Bigfoot was gone. "What happened?" I said, running towards him. My breath was raspy and fast. I can't believe you're alive. I got the hell of a scare back there. I thought that Bigfoot was going to kill you. I can't believe you're still alive." "You want to know what bloody happened, do you? That Bigfoot grabbed me. He threw me across the beach sand, and then he ran back into the woods." I sighed with relief. "Well, at least he didn't hurt you. I mean, you did provoke him to anger when you threw that stone at him. Why would you do a thing like that? It was a dangerous thing to do." "I was showing him that he didn't scare me. I'm telling you something. I'm going to get that bloody Bigfoot. See if I don't. Shoot him in the head. Take him down myself. No one belittles me like this." "With the greatest of respect, Dusty, and I mean this with the greatest of respect, I think you're overreacting. If that Bigfoot had wanted you dead, he could have killed you in a second, crushing you like we could crush a small snail hiding out in the cabbages. But he didn't, did he? Doesn't that at least say something? I think you should leave him well alone. If you went after him with a gun, you might make him as mad as a hatter, and I don't fancy your chances against him. I really don't." "You don't fancy my chances against him?" scoffed Dusty. "That's rich coming from you, Todd. What are you saying? That I'm not a good shot?" "I'm not saying anything of the kind, Dusty. Don't twist my words. I have no idea how good you are with a rifle. Don't take it personally. I'm just saying that very formidable Bigfoot is like a bulletproof army vehicle. He's gargantuan in size, massive.
Even if you took a shot at him, you might not successfully kill him. And then if you attempt to kill him, I think you will be the one that is sorry. You don't know what you're talking about, Todd. You haven't had any hunting experience, clearly. No, I admit I have not. There you go. You've answered your own question. I'll take down that Bigfoot without any problems. I'm a proficient hunter. I know what I'm doing. And believe me this, Todd, I'm going to get him. And I'm going to take him down. But why? Why do you want to kill him, Dusty? That's insane. What has he done to you? Apart from throwing you out onto the sand. And I can't blame him for doing that. You were challenging him in the woods. No wonder he was pissed. Dusty looked at me incredulously, as if I was speaking a foreign language to him. Or he thought I was a simpleton of note. Why? Why do I want to kill him? You asked me such a question. Are you kidding me? That Bigfoot threw me onto the beach, so I fell over and went sliding back. He spoke to me in my head and said, "Don't you dare do that again, or I'll kill you next time." He bloody threatened me, Todd. No one threatens me. No one treats me like that. And when we entered the woodgrove, he barricaded our path, as if to say we had no right being there. This is our land, Todd. We live on this property together. This Bigfoot is imposing a threat to us. We need to take him down. He threatened me, Todd. Does that mean nothing to you? I did think that Dusty was overreacting and was a wee bit loopy in the head, to suggest that the Bigfoot had somehow managed to communicate with him. But I certainly did not blame that Bigfoot for being mad with Dusty, for throwing a stone at him. The Bigfoot had brushed past me in the grove, gently pushed me away to get to Dusty, to get his message across to him. If that Bigfoot had wanted to kill me, I was putty in his hands, but he did not. But it would seem Dusty was being obstinate, and assured me that he would stop at nothing to kill the Bigfoot, and I knew persuading him to think differently was not going to happen. But in truth I did not fancy his chances against the Bigfoot. I knew that even with a high-powered rifle, Dusty would never manage to take the creature down. If anyone would end up dead, it would likely be Dusty, and I was concerned about his safety, but I gritted my teeth and chose not to mention the matter again. I was enjoying a quiet evening meal in my house, pâté and toast, with a bowl of soup, the following evening, when Dusty began banging on my door. And given the events of the previous evening, he was the last person I actually wanted to see. I had privately decided to give him a wide berth, as I sensed he was the kind of man that invited trouble wherever he went, and I wanted no part of it. But Dusty Cladessa would not take rejection kindly. I needed to handle this friendship with care, like a set of crystal glasses that could so easily break, and some of those glass shards are treacherously dangerous and can cut through bone, marrow, and sinew without apology. In many ways, Dusty imposed a greater threat than the Bigfoot in the grove, as he seemed rather unhinged and unbalanced. When I opened the door, he came waltzing into the house, breathing furiously, his face red with excitement, his whole body quivering like a jelly. In that moment I wondered if he had actually managed to kill the Bigfoot. Maybe I had underestimated his hunting prowess. I'd never have imagined it possible for one man to take down such a titanic creature. But then again, poachers manage to kill rhinoceroses and elephants, don't they? "It worked," he said, throwing his fists in the air in delight. "It bloody worked! I told you it would work." My face dropped, and for a second I genuinely felt crestfallen. I was surprised that I wasn't happy, that he must have killed the Bigfoot. "So you killed the Bigfoot?" I asked him. Dusty shook his head so hard, slapping me on the back. "No, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about my DNA profile on the data bank. I've been matched. My son got in contact with me. We're talking together. Can you bloody believe it?" I stared at Dusty with eyes as wide as saucers. "You're kidding? Your son that was abducted from that beach years ago is in contact with you? Does he even know he was abducted? He didn't even know he'd been adopted. Can you believe that? We've been in touch. He begged me not to go to the authorities about his parents. He says they've given him a good life. He wants to meet me. Can you believe it? I'm going to be reunited with my son after all these years, when I'd almost given up hope. It is such good news. I don't know what to say. That's incredible, Dusty. Really incredible. I'm so happy for you. If your son didn't know he was adopted, why on earth was he on a DNA database? I don't understand. It was a school project or something that they were doing. So he entered his details nonchalantly. Didn't expect any response. And when he heard from the results that I was 99% likely to be his father, he was sure there was a mistake. His parents don't even know that he knows their dirty little secret that they've been keeping from him for all these years. Can you believe it? If he doesn't want you to go to the police, Dusty, about his parents, if you want my advice, I would respect his wishes. That poor young man has to come to terms with the fact that not only was he adopted by people that he believed were his real parents, but these same people he loved and respected all these years abducted him from a beach when he was only 6 months old. It will be devastating for him, but despite everything, he loves them. So if you are being responsible, don't get them arrested for what they've done. It could backfire against you greatly. He could end up hating you for what you do. I recently read an article about something like that in a paper. An abducted child choosing her abductors over her real parents. So you need to bear this in mind. You need to tread very carefully, Dusty. Don't you worry, bro, said Dusty, slapping me on the back. I am not an idiot. I shall not be involving the police under any circumstances. They're bloody useless anyway. Administering justice, they don't even know the meaning of it. But believe me, those parents will pay for what they have done. Dusty's ominous threats scared me, because I knew he was a man likely to take the law in his own hands. But I knew I didn't want to get embroiled with a situation that by all accounts seemed more than a little messy. Dusty was so thrilled to be in contact with his son. He looked like a cat that had got the cream, and his thoughts of going after the Bigfoot had subsided. I had since learned that his son had visited him at the house, and they were developing a relationship, and I was so pleased that Dusty was now reunited with his long-lost son. I tried to envisage how I would personally feel if my own child had been abducted from a beach, and then a DNA profile on a databank had brought us together years later against all the odds. One evening Dusty asked me if I'd like to join him on the beach for a barbecue and meet his beloved son, and how could I refuse such an invitation? I was curious and intrigued about meeting this mysterious young gentleman, and wanted to learn all about him. When I arrived on the beach, Dusty had a fire crackling merrily away in a fire pit. It was a beautiful, prepossessing night. The weather was lovely and warm, and we were barbecuing some marinated chicken pieces and burgers over a smouldering fire, and the aromatic, smoky smells of the meat wafted across the whole beach. Dusty's child had been called Howard and was shortened to Howie, but his real name was Lincoln Astor, and he was a very well-mannered young man who studied me rather nervously as I came over to meet him. "This is my next-door neighbour, son," said Dusty. "We're very good friends. He lives in another part of the house, behind the electric blue door. As you know, I live behind the yellow door." "You live in an amazing place," said Lincoln appreciatively. "It's so cool to have a beach all to yourself like this. I understand from my father that you encountered a Bigfoot in those woods over there, and that he tried to kill my father. Dusty brought a rifle on the beach. He says he wants to shoot the creature." I stared at Dusty incredulously. Talk about exaggeration. "The Bigfoot didn't try to kill him exactly," I said, trying to set the record straight. "Look, it wasn't exactly like that. We were on the beach together, as we all are now. I sensed something was watching us from those woods over there," I said, pointing to the trees. "And when we went into the woods, we encountered a Bigfoot. Granted, it was a terrifying experience. It was huge, so intimidating. I wet my pants quite literally, something I haven't done since I was a little boy. But this Bigfoot was so powerful. It could easily have snapped our necks without any problem. It was blocking our path. Dusty here bravely threw a stone at the Bigfoot, which I personally did not think was a good thing to do, because it provoked the creature to anger. He pushed past me abruptly, ran after Dusty, throwing him onto the beach sand. But he didn't kill either of us, and believe me, if he had wanted to, it would have been nothing for him to do.
Lincoln stared at Dusty incredulously and said,
"But I thought you said—" "Well, he didn't kill me, he threw me onto the beach," said Dusty. "But next time, he said he would kill me in my head. I know it sounds strange and bizarre, but it certainly happened like that. Some kind of telepathic exchange. If that story is true, then you must not harm the Bigfoot," said Lincoln soberly. "He was warning you not to mess with him, or you'd be sorry. You'd be wise to put your rifle away. I mean, I don't blame him for running after you, if you threw a stone at him," he told his father. "You were challenging him. He could have killed you, but he didn't. Todd is right. Just leave him well alone, or if you ask me, you will regret it. I've heard about Bigfoots. They're clever, you know. You don't want to rub them up the wrong way. Maybe he was blocking your path for very good reason, possibly even protecting you from something. Just because the creature's scary doesn't make him bad. Half the time these creatures get a bad rap. People misunderstand them, assume the worst. But you might be horribly wrong in your impressions that you have of the creature. I would be careful if I were you. I wouldn't do anything stupid."
Dusty didn't look desperately amused at me for showing him off in front of his son. But I knew if anyone could make Dusty see reason, it would be his long-lost son, and it seemed to be working. He scoffed.
"I hardly think the Bigfoot was protecting us. I think he wanted us out of the woodgrove. He was trying to assert his authority over the place. And this is our property."
"Even if he was," said Lincoln, "don't mess with him. I don't want you to upset him. You could end up badly off if you did, and I'd like to get to know you better."
"How do you feel about your parents, Lincoln?" I asked him, "knowing that you were abducted all those years ago from that beach, and that your parents are not your own. I hope you don't mind me asking such an impertinent question. It's none of my business if you don't want to answer it, of course." Lincoln frowned. "It's all very strange. I can't make any sense of it. My parents are good people, you see, Todd. I come from a loving home. I've never wanted for anything. My parents are law-abiding citizens, and they've loved me unconditionally. I can't believe they would do a thing like this. I only found one article that Dusty sent me, mentioning me as an abducted child on that beach. It didn't even make front-page news at the time." "It's disgusting," agreed Dusty. "I made a huge commotion at the police station, but they didn't seem to care a jot that you'd been abducted from a beach. They said they were doing their level best to find you, but my foot, they didn't even lift a finger. It was dreadful, absolutely dreadful." "It is more than a little odd," I agreed.
We sat on the beach all evening, staring out at the ocean, listening to the crashing of the waves, enjoying the soft moonlight that spilled all over the beach, and enjoying the flames of the crackling fire as we roasted marshmallows. I could see Dusty had his high-powered rifle by his side, and I knew if he thought the Bigfoot was around, he would not hesitate, despite our warnings, to unload his barrel in the creature and fire after him in a blaze of bullets. And I hasten to say, as this blissfully beautiful evening progressed, I sensed the feeling that I had perceived on the beach the time before, and I knew that the Bigfoot was watching us. Lincoln sensed it too, and was exchanging private glances at me. I think he realized that his father was hell-bent on the idea of killing the Bigfoot, The good news is that Dusty was 2 sheets to the wind, and he probably would not have noticed a pink flamingo if it was flapping its wings under the soft shadows of a full moon. So I knew that the Bigfoot watching us from the trees was likely safe for the time being, and I was certain I'd seen a pair of yellow eyes. And I will say my former fear I felt for the creature was replaced by a clandestine wondrous awe. But such private ruminations I knew not to share with Dusty Cladessa. So there we are. That's the end of part 3. It's getting terribly exciting. So let's get on with it, shall we? And part 4 is tomorrow night. So I look forward to you joining me then. Until next time, goodbye and good night.